Hello everybody, welcome back to Let's Talk Ninjago. Today we will be talking about Dragons Rising Season 4 Part 1. This is going to be my official review. Before we get started, I just want to say massive spoiler warning. If you have not seen the season, click off if you care about spoilers. Alright, before we start the video, I just want to give a quick apology. I know there wasn't a video last Friday. I got very caught up with family stuff and Easter. So to make up for this video is going to be a lot longer. Also, it gave me the opportunity to watch the season twice, so this is going to be a more in-depth review as I've watched the season twice. Alright, let's get into my general thoughts on the season. Overall, my thoughts on Dragons Rising Season 4 Part 1 are extremely positive. I'd say it's tied with Season 2 Part 1 as the best part of Dragons Rising, and I don't really have much negatives. Now, we're going to do a little general pros and cons first, which might be a bit all over the place as I was writing notes while watching the show. But yeah, we're going to do that right now. My first positive is I found every character got something to do, whether it be Zane, Cole specifically found something to do, which I was worried he wouldn't. Euphrasia had something to do, Sora, Frack, Wildfire, Aaron, Kai, Nia, Jay, obviously Lloyd. The only exception is Pixel, but I feel like she hasn't done anything in all of Dragons Rising, so it's not the biggest issue. A huge positive for the season overall is a lack of time wasting. I feel like this season's pacing is very good. There's no rushed, it's not rushed as well, but it just moves along very well. It's a slow burn at the start, sort of, but it really sets up the season nice. And you don't have any episodes that feel like just could have been cut like you did for prior seasons. In terms of the characters, surprisingly, for having 12 main characters, it did not feel overstacked. I feel like every character had their role, even Ryu, which he's been left out for the past two seasons, I'd say. They all had something to do that related to the plot. Some more positives, obviously, if you've been online, anything surrounding Ninjago recently, the animation has been talked about a lot, and for good reason. Some of these fight scenes are phenomenal. The Lloyd fight scenes in the Whispering Woods, where they get the powers, and Aaron, shoots rocks from his spinjitzu, that's just sick. You can't say anything else. It's so cool. Along with this, the Draconis form fights, I saw a really sick edit from, is it Jonathan Carter? Shout out to him. His edit was sick of that scene. They really animated the Draconis forms well, and they made them sick, which was a huge positive. In terms of the season as a whole, it felt very self-contained, with Beatrix coming back and Raz not being in it. It kind of doesn't feel as much of a continuation as sort of a side route, you could say. But a fun side route, so where's the complaint there? Every episode had no filler. There wasn't an episode that stood out as the worst in the season, which I feel like a lot of the time there is. Little positive, the intro. I really like that new Weekend Whip with We Rise mixed together. The season has incredibly memorable moments. Lloyd's Draconis form, seeing young Lloyd and enemy Lloyd. Jay getting his memory back is probably the standout scene in the season. I really like what scenes they picked for that scene. We'll get more into this in detail when we talk about Jay, but that's a huge positive. It delivered one of my biggest wants, which was bringing Sora's parents back. I just felt like this was probably the only time you're going to get to bring them back in a way that makes complete sense. I mean, they blindly followed Beatrix. They literally fit the loyalist ideology perfectly. There would have been a mistake to not bring them back. So I'm really interested where that goes. It has consequences for a season that happened, what is it, 14 years ago? Or 14 or 13 years ago. It literally, and it feels like a classic Ninjago season. I don't know how to explain it, but it just does. I think it's that all the characters get something to do. But yeah, really great. for some cons, I would say not much of an issue, but I do kind of feel like Sora, Frack, Wildfire, and Euphrasia could have got dragon forms. I don't really see. They didn't really explain why they couldn't, apart from they weren't in the sets, which is the obvious reason. But yeah, not much of a big deal, but I still feel like Dragons Rising suffers a bit with the tell don't show, which could be blamed by Netflix with their people watching stuff and watching the show in the background, which I think is a huge thing that they shouldn't be focusing on. You should put the season as a top priority. So that's a little bit of a problem. And my main other problem is just Pixel does nothing, which, yeah, not too big of a problem considering her past in Dragons Rising, but I just thought I'd bring it up. Okay, now we're going to talk about Lloyd. As the main character, Lloyd gets a lot to do this season, and it's worth it. This is probably Lloyd's third best showing in the show. Maybe I'd only put Season 8, Season 9 maybe, and maybe Dragons Rising Season 2 above it. But Lloyd is incredible this season. I mean, you learn so much about Lloyd, starting off with his powers, which we finally get an explanation for why he's not the master of energy, he's the master of life. And it makes perfect sense. Lloyd has always been the center of the team. He was who everyone wanted to be in the first season, being the Green Ninja. He's who they all protected in Season 2 when he was with the prophecy. He's who gave them the powers, gave the other ninja their powers in Season 3. He's led the team past that. He's always been the rock of the team. So I think it makes perfect sense for Lloyd's character. Along with this, I really liked Lloyd's dynamic with Aaron, Euphrasia not as much, they didn't interact that much to be honest, and Zane. I think they all had great dynamics, made perfect sense for their characters. Now, in terms of some other things for Lloyd, we have the other variants of Lloyd. I'll start off with the younger versions because I've got more to talk about with Enemy Lloyd. I really enjoyed Young Lloyd and Teen Lloyd. I thought they were really fun. They felt exactly like Season 1 Lloyd. They even had the same soundtrack of Lloyd when he's causing trouble in like Jamonokai Village and stuff, which I just thought was so fun. It's really nostalgic. It brings you back to that old season. And I do like the little acknowledgement from Lloyd when he goes, "I was such a brat." Because a lot of fans complain about young Lloyd being annoying. I just thought it was a really neat reference. I have a small problem with them. I just wish they could have seen them more. Like, we got Jillian Michaels back and they were in it for about 5 minutes in total. Not a big problem, but it was just really fun seeing them and I want to see more. Enemy Lloyd, on the other hand, great. I really enjoyed Enemy Lloyd. I like to think of Enemy Lloyd as basically a manifestation of all of Lloyd's like dark thoughts, all of his negative thoughts. Because if you notice in the battle, Lloyd really only loses to Enemy Lloyd when Enemy Lloyd is telling him his failures. But whenever Lloyd acknowledges them and admits that what he's done wrong, he's winning against Enemy Lloyd. Which I don't know if it's on purpose, but if it was, I found that to be really interesting because it kind of shows that the final test was Lloyd confronting all his fears, all his trauma, all the bad thoughts he has about himself and that others have about himself. So I really enjoyed that. The last thing with Lloyd, one other thing with Enemy Lloyd, very minor nitpick, but we did get the suit revealed from the CMF series, and I do kind of wish it was that suit instead of the Season 3 Part 2 suit, just darker. I just think that suit's really cool, but it does make sense for the idea of Enemy Lloyd being more of a manifestation of Lloyd's darker ideas, with him having the same suit in a darker color. Like, it makes perfect sense. And yeah, the last thing with Lloyd was the action. Lloyd gets a lot of great action this season. All the fights in the Whispering Woods, as I spoke about before, were really fun. And also the Draconis form fights with Beatrix I really enjoyed. I felt like Lloyd was really mature in those fight scenes. He fought smart. And I really like how he talks after he goes through the trial. He sort of seems like he's gone through a lot. and he's learned, which I really enjoyed from Lloyd. And yeah, this was a standout season for him. Alright, let's talk about the other three from that part of the story, being Zane, Aaron, and Euphrasia. For these characters, I have a fair bit to say about Zane and Aaron, not too much about Euphrasia. We'll start with Aaron. I really enjoyed Aaron this season. He didn't get as much to do as he did in prior seasons, all the prior seasons. But I really enjoyed his dynamic with Lloyd. I liked how they didn't force any arguments and they were both quite apologetic. And I really liked his dynamic with Euphrasia. Originally, I thought there wouldn't be any romantic stuff, but I did kind of like the chemistry between them, and I wouldn't be opposed to anything happening with them in the future. Along with that, I really enjoyed Aaron's spinjutsu. I feel like you can see he's evolving from the previous seasons. His development isn't stunted like it was in season 2, and he's actually showing progression. And I do like how Zane mentioned the red sort of shatter spin looking parts of his spinjitzu, because that's an aspect that needs to be explored if it's gonna, what that could end up being. In terms of Euphrasia, I don't have much to say. She was a good addition to the cast. I just don't feel like there's much to say with her. I do like her character. She's great with Aaron. I think that's the highlight. And I wouldn't be opposed to her staying on the ninja team. I thought she was pretty good. Now, the character that I do have a decent bit to talk about is Zane. They did it. They brought back OG Zane. Whew! What a good feeling. I was really nervous at the start, and to be honest, it didn't start off great. I wrote down here the lines, was it janky? He said something about janky and bummer, and I'm chill now, and I was like, oh, God, what is this? This feels really weird and forced, like the cringe line did in the Tournament of Sources. But after that, they really picked it up. I think the standout scenes with Zane were his scenes with the Dragon of Life. He really showed his emotions and how he's not just a robot, he's a human. He showed visual care for her, showed that he cared for the dragon. And an aspect of Aaron and Zane that I really enjoyed in this season is that they, for not 1 second, gave up on Lloyd, which I think is perfect for their characters, considering Aaron's been a fan of Lloyd his whole life, and Zane's known Lloyd for Lloyd's whole life as a ninja. I just think it makes perfect sense that they never gave up on Lloyd. Let's see, I don't think I have anything else to say. I mean, nitpick, but this happens in every season, but Aaron just randomly gets his new suit. Who really cares? That always happens. Yeah, I think that's about it for these characters. They're a really good addition to the cast. As I said before in the general thoughts, every character got something to do. So yeah, I really enjoyed it. Now, let's get into the other standout character of this season. That's Jay. I think one thing we can all agree on is Dragons Rising has continued to deliver with Jay. He was great this season. I don't have anything to complain about really with Jay, but I have a lot of positives. First of all, just in general, the Kai, Nia, and Jay group, or trio, was just really fun. Obviously, that's classic Ninjago feels, having those three characters. And I really liked the dynamic before Jay got his memories back and after Jay got his memories back. I think the standout scene for Jay is obviously the scene where he gets his memories back. I think they chose perfect scenes for that. Him and Nia in the Dragon Stables in Season 1. They had Jay finding his true potential, which is obviously like a quintessential Jay and Nia scene. They had... What else did they have? It was... did they show Season 6? They probably should have shown Season 6. They had the Jay proposing, and then a couple other scenes that... Yeah, I just thought they picked really good scenes for that brought out the emotions. I also thought... I was worried that the memory machine giving Jay his memories back would feel rushed. But them adding that he's slowly getting his memories back fixed that. Because it created the comedy of Jay just randomly getting these memories and reacting to them how you'd expect someone to react. And yeah, I thought it was handled really well. I also really liked the scene with Jay and Cole in episode 10. Because it kind of throws back to the episode 10 of season 3. where Jay's like, I've got a lot of memories, but none of them are you, to Cole, and Cole's pretty upset about it. And now it's like, oh, the next time they see each other, they're all buddies again. And of course, the scene at the end where they're fighting over the controller, classic Ninjago. Like, that's just got classic feel. It's great. I do still feel like the memories were rushed a little bit, but there was so much to do this season that it's not really a nitpick. And one little thing with Jay's memory, his nightmare, it was a little bit confusing why Aaron was in the middle. Like, I got the others, Jordana and, Raz, and the administration guys, and some other people he'd worked for, like Zeatrix. But Aaron being the main one was kind of confusing. I feel like it would have hit more if it was Raz in the middle or someone else. I don't know, very little problem, but yeah, I don't have much to say. We'll also do the scene with Rapton. They actually made Rapton funny, which, congrats to the writers. I didn't think it could happen after season 3, but they did it. Let's also talk about Kai and Nia while we're on this bit. Yep, they were great. I don't have much to say with them. Nia obviously got more than Kai because it's Jay, but all the scenes with Nia were great. I don't have any issues with either of them. Kai still is very funny, and I like that he said Nia and Jay are boring and he prefer to hang out with Wildfire. It sort of suits his new Dragons Rising, like just how Kai is in Dragons Rising. So I really like that. I do get a little bit tired. I'm a little bit tired of the administration. Maybe just because it's meant to be a boring place, but I just feel like we're not going anywhere with the administration. It's always them working around the administration. We're not actually finding out about the administration itself. And my final thing for this plot, this part of the story, is that I like how it's slowly weaved into the main plot of the Loyalists with the administration. I thought they did that well, where it slowly leads into the mystery of the Weapon of Desolation and the spiral things. And I like the reveal that some of the, what are they called, administration officers were Loyalists, because it kind of shows that, I like to think that immediately after, Percival took control, they just instantly started forming, or LaRoe started forming this Loyalist group, and they've slowly been infiltrating massive parts of the Merge Realms for the past year and a half, give or take. So I really enjoyed that. Now, let's talk about the other part of the story, the other main part. That's Sora, Frack, Wildfire, and Ryu. As I'm sure is the case for many of you, this was my least anticipated storyline, just for the fact that I just wasn't as excited. There's not as much to look forward to. There's no Lloyd's massive journey or Jay getting his memories back, something big to think about as a whole for that part. But I have to say, after the first 2 episodes, which did start off a bit rough, I feel like they completely wasted the first location, because as you saw in if you watched the prediction video, I thought they might find the Shadow Dojo because it looks similar to that place, and we'll get into that at the end, but it might be that place. But I feel like that first location was just a bit slow to get to the actual good place, which was Umbra Silvers. And I have to say, Umbra Silvers was very fun. I like the location. I don't know if anyone else picked up on this, but it's quite Nexo Knights-esque, if you know what I mean. Very old-fashioned Knights type of place. I really enjoyed it. I quite liked the dynamic between Frack and Sora this season. It feels a lot less mean and attacking with each other, and more like two people that have different opinions trying to work together, which I thought was a lot better. I like how we explore Frack's dynamic with his dad, and how it sort of contrasts with Sora's dynamic with her parents, where if they said something she didn't agree with, she'd just completely oppose it and not go along with them, whereas Frack sort of is different, and he's learnt to just listen to what his dad says, whether he believes in it or not, which I think is a great dynamic to explore how different people go about their parents. I have to say, in terms of Frack's dad, I do have a couple complaints with him. I feel like he's just a bit unnecessarily mean, especially to Gweeg, the guy that looks like Frohickey. I feel like it makes the character very unlikable initially, and you sort of can't get that first impression out of your mind when the redemption scene comes along. Though I do have to say, the redemption scene does make sense and is quite a good analogy, you could say, for real life, where some people feel like they have to work extra hard because of discrimination, which I thought was a great representation for certain viewers, and I thought showed a unique perspective on a character that many would consider just a bad dude. Like, it shows, his reasoning, even if he's not in the right. Wildfire, as always, is fun. I feel like she didn't get much to do. She was funny. Like, it's Wildfire, what do you expect? But she doesn't have as much to do as she did in season 2 or season 1. Better than she was in season 3, I'll have to say. But yeah, I just feel like we could get a little bit more with Wildfire, but not a big issue. There's a lot of characters in the season. And Ryu, I really enjoyed Ryu. We already went over a bit, but they finally gave Ryu something to do, which is what I've been asking for 2 seasons. Like, I just feel like it's very interesting to have a dragon as part of the main cast, and they didn't use it at all in the prior 2 seasons, I'd say. So I really enjoyed that. I do have a couple negatives around this storyline. I feel like it started off too slow, and once you watch the rest of the season, you kind of realize they could have condensed that part of the story in the other realm down to 1 episode if they really wanted to, because the stuff with like the kittens and the pies was a bit of time wasting. So yeah, not the biggest fan of that. I did like similar to the Jay storyline, I did like how this interweaved with the main loyalist storyline. And initially I didn't get the Inquisitor being a loyalist, but now rewatching the season for a second time, it makes sense. He's infiltrated the place and worked his way up to being a loyalist, which I thought was really fun. And it kind of makes you think how many other places had loyalists just in major roles and no one even had any clue. Which I think is a pretty cool thing to think about. I went over Umbra Silvers. We can talk about this right now. Why is Sora's parents back? This is not a negative at all. This is actually a huge positive for me. But I'm just a bit confused where they're going with this. This will be discussed in a further video, what I think is going to happen in Season 3 Part 2. But I'm wondering if, based on the set leak as well we had with the Beatrix mech, is Beatrix going to return again? And is that going to have something to do with Sora's parents? And to that, I would say, yes, let's do that. Like, that's a great reveal. It's pretty obviously made that Sora's parents are not redeemed, judging by the fact that they literally took the loyalist masks off so they could blend in, not to, what would you say? Not to rebuke for what they've done wrong, yeah. I think that's going to be really interesting. I can't wait to see how it works in part 2. Okay, let's talk about the final main ninja. We're going to talk about Cole. Much like the other characters in this season, Cole is written phenomenally. I feel like this is the most blatant example of the writers responding to the fan criticism by improving their writing. I mean, there was a lot of criticism for the past, all of Dragons Rising, you could say, about the lack of Cole being in it. And this season just goes against that. Cole gets a major role in this season and is consistent throughout the whole thing. I really like how they, instead of giving Cole something random to do with the Finders like they've done before, where they say he's doing something, but realistically he's just there because the cast is too bloated. But this time they gave Cole something that literally was completely to do with the main plot, which I really enjoyed. It made sense that Percival would go to the monastery. It made sense why Cole was there. And it just all intersected really well and made perfect sense. I do really like how Cole was quite apologetic for his actions in Season 3, where he was acting just purely on emotion, which I don't really think is much of a Cole thing to do, considering how much growth he's had throughout the whole show. So I do like that he's quite regretful about that. I mean, just in general, Cole got a lot to do and was quite funny. I'm a little bit confused about the emphasis on Cole being so funny. I think it's Lloyd who says, "You've always been so funny, Cole," or something like that towards the final battle. I don't really know if that suits Cole as much as it would like Kai or Jay. I don't feel like Cole has been the comedian, but he was pretty funny. It's just something that doesn't really align perfectly with the other seasons. Now, I think this will be explained in part 2, but I do have a bit of a problem that with the part in the monastery, why that is still sort of left unopened. I would have liked to learn, considering we didn't get much about Raz, I would have liked to at least learn why he captured Master Wu in this season, but they set it up. They'll definitely pay it off in part 2, so not too big of a deal. And it's an unfortunate thing to say, but unlike, like, for example, Kai or Nia, I do feel like Cole feels different than Cole even in, say, Master of the Mountain. He does have a different voice actor, and he does a great job, but there's just, I don't know what it is. Maybe it's just because he's older and he's with the Finders, but I do feel like if you watched an OG season, then you watch this season, out of all the ninja, Cole's the most separated from his original self, if you get what I mean. Not a big complaint because he was still great this season, but I just think it's something that I have to bring up. I really liked his elemental mech sort of design. I really thought that was cool. Unfortunately, it did take the place of his Draconis form, but based on that image we got in the monastery with him and Kai, we will be seeing that anyway, so not a big deal. And final thing for Cole, his scenes with Jay. I mean, there's not many, but yeah, that's classic Ninjago if I've ever seen it. Just perfect. Perfectly written. Suits the characters perfectly that they're fighting. I mean, we've got scenes in... They did the little callback to the noodle hole sort of thing on the wall that Cole was talking about in Season 2, sorry. Which I really enjoyed. And overall, I just feel like Cole was handled perfectly. I don't think there shouldn't have been more for him. I feel like he got enough to do, and there definitely wasn't too little of him to do. Okay, now we're going to talk about the main villains. We're going to talk about Beatrix, Leroux, and the Loyalists, and then a little bit of the elemental monsters. I don't have too much to say on them, but yeah, let's get into them. Let's start off with the former Empress of Imperium, Beatrix. I really liked Beatrix's return in this season. It didn't feel like the most necessary thing, but considering how good this season was, I don't have many problems. I do have a problem with just Beatrix in general. I don't find her to be the most interesting character. However, I do feel like with her new design, she's a bit more fun in this season, and she's a lot more manic, sort of like she was at the finale of Season 1. I do like her new mech. I think it's really cool, and I like the callback to Monstrosity of Beatrix being in the Land of Monsters, kind of showing how resilient Kai is. Because you look at Beatrix and she's completely different. Sora even mentions that her mech isn't technology anymore. It's part of herself. Whereas you compare that to Kai and he doesn't get out damage free. But compared to, say, Beatrix, he survived the Land of Monsters really well, which is just a cool thing to note. I like the anime-style flashbacks for Beatrix. I thought that's a really unique and cool way to use that type of animation. And we haven't seen that since Season 13, Master of the Mountain. Oh, no. It would be Seabound. Yeah, we haven't seen it since Seabound. So I thought it was a nice little callback that made sense. It didn't feel too much. It didn't feel unnecessary, and it sort of tied in with Monstrosity because Monstrosity had that different animation as well. That's about it for Beatrix. I don't really have much to say about her. She was a fun villain, not Raz level, but a fun villain. I'm a bit concerned about her coming back in part 2 because I just feel like that's a bit unnecessary, but we'll talk about that in a future video. Now, I want to get into the Loyalists. I really enjoyed the Loyalists. We'll start off with the negatives because I do have one kind of major negative. I don't really understand Dr. Leroux's motivation. Because in Season 1, it seems to me at the end that Leroux just not gives up on Beatrix, but is done with Beatrix. When Beatrix replaces her with Jordana, that to me sort of felt like a split in terms of them working together. So it didn't make the most sense why LaRoe worked with Beatrix again, knowing how unstable Beatrix is. But to be fair, she does give a pretty good reason, which is just she doesn't like how New Imperium is, which that's a good enough reason to me. But my main, I'm really happy about this. My main pro is just the loyalists. I really like how they're sort of put into every part of the season, and in a perfect sense. Like they're in the administration, they're obviously in Imperium, they're in Umbra Silvers. I like seeing that because it goes to show how big this organization is and how widespread it is across the merged lands. It's also kind of a good analogy for real life. People following leaders who are portrayed as insane, but there's still people who will willingly follow them. It's a good analogy for real life, which I found pretty cool. And yeah, I really enjoyed the Loyalists. I thought they're really fun villains. I don't think we need to see them back for part two, apart from Sora's parents. But yeah, no problems there. We may as well talk about the elemental monsters while we're here, because I don't have much to say. Overall, really great designs, not much to talk about. Like, they don't say anything, they just fight. I think it's cool. I think my favorite's probably the acid monster. I just think he's cool. Or what's he called? The guy with the big head. The mutation monster? Yeah, they're really cool. I mean, they're all cool. The ice and the fire ones should have different designs, but that's a set thing probably. So not a big deal. Yeah, overall, I'm pretty happy with the villains. And yeah, that's about it. All I've got for the villain side. Now we're just going to talk about some couple extra things I want to talk about with the season. Then we'll do my final thoughts. And yeah, let's get into the other stuff I want to talk about. Now, in terms of the other stuff I have to talk about, this mainly revolves around Rontu and Raz. I think we'll start with Rontu because I've got a little bit more to say with her. I thought she was good this season. There wasn't much to her. I did really enjoy the scene with Ego. And obviously we got to see that Mora was back, which is good news. And they didn't overshow him. They just showed him where it made sense, which I enjoyed. I do kind of think Rontu could have just died. I don't really see the need for her to continue training Ryu. But, I mean, they can keep her alive. I'm fine with it. Interested to see where that goes. If it gets any better, we'll see how that goes. And in terms of Raz, there's not much to say again. I enjoyed his last scene where he's yelling to his master. I do have a question with Raz. Why is he yelling? Is his master in the Shadow Dojo? It's a very little thing, but just a bit of a question I'm wondering. And with Raz, I'm really looking forward to part 2. I think he's going to be the focus villain. I'm going to do a video probably next week about my concerns for part 2, which mainly revolve around Beatrix coming back again and us getting even less focus on Raz, but we'll discuss that later. And I think that's all I've got to say for this season. I'll give my overall thoughts now. Okay, overall, I'd give the season a 9, probably a 9.5 out of 10. I really enjoyed it. It far exceeded my expectations, especially following up on a pretty mediocre season in Dragons Rising Season 3. So yeah, I hope Dragons Rising continues to be just like this season. I very much enjoyed it. Alright, thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. It's a bit longer today, but I hope you got all that I was talking about. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. I'll see you next time.